All right. Hey, everybody, go Bears, I say. And I'm really happy. It's been a long time since I've had Mike on this program. And a long time since I actually seen him in person because of all those situations and everything. But Mike, welcome back.
Well, it's been too long in person for sure, Zenny, and it's always great to go on with you. And we go way back. And so this is not just a professional joy; it's always a personal thrill. So thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming out, brother from another mother, Leo.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, Why Is Everything is the best book ever written about NFL football in my life.
Okay? Wow, this is why I love coming on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, put that thing up there. Let people see that thing. Yeah,
it's available everywhere, wherever books
folks.
are sold.
Get it. The Why Is Everything. Got to get that book. Mike, what was the aha moment where you said, "I'm going to write what became the Why Is Everything"? How did the hell come about?
It's a great question, Zenny, because this was percolating in my mind in some form for a long time. And, of course, it goes back in the book. You start with Walsh and then you go to Mike Shanahan, how he kind of he inherited Steve Young when he was the 49er offensive coordinator in the 90s, early 90s. Both were embattled. Mike Shanahan, his reputation in tatters. Steve Young was not good enough for any 49er fan because he wasn't Joe Montana. And together they made beautiful music. And I watched it happen from a very close vantage point, covering those teams and then staying, very close to Mike as he went to Denver, incorporated outside zone into that West Coast scheme and really changed football. So that was kind of always there. And obviously I paid a lot of attention to Kyle, his son, and these, cohorts of Kyle's. And all of those people were together on that Washington staff in the early 2010s when Mike Shanahan came back to be the head coach. But it was Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Raheem Morris, Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, among others, and, all current NFL head coaches. Zenny, I remember going out there during the RG3 year and being blown away because I didn't understand how they were, keeping NFL defensive coordinators from figuring out what they were doing. And I remember sitting with Mike and Kyle, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And they go, "We're just running our offense, but out of the pistol." And I was like, "Huh?" And they were like, "No, seriously, we just took our whole offense." I mean, they made it sound simpler than it was, but it was a very simple idea that people hadn't caught on to. So all of that was kind of there. And then as I got to know a lot of these other coaches as well as Kyle and watch them kind of go on, and a lot of them went through some stuff along the way, but in Atlanta a bunch of them were there, doing really good things, going to the Super Bowl. I kind of knew there was something there. And really Mike McDaniel in particular, I started having some pretty long conversations with just about him, that crew, how they saw things. As far back as 2018, I think I was taping them at meetings we had at Zachary's in Berkeley, and upstairs. I could still picture it. And
Zachary's classic.
Yeah, I think I almost got a ticket because we were in there for so long, a parking ticket. But so I knew there was something there. And then during the lockdown and when I had a lot of time on my hands at home in 2020, I finally started thinking, I got to figure out what this is. And then eventually got to the point where I could write a book proposal and try to wrap my arms around it. And it was evolving in real time. Shanahan and McVay and that rivalry, and LaFleur having big success in Green Bay, Raheem closing in on a coveted second chance after all these years, and then ever getting that Dolphins job. And so, there were feuds, there was all sorts of pettiness, playing out in real time. So it really worked out nicely, timing wise.
Hey, did you anticipate, however, that the book would be 445 pages? I mean, it's like, you know what I thought, just candidly, I thought, okay, I'm 63 now. You're 4 years younger than me, something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, he's writing his magnum opus for the rest of his life. This is it. This is like, bam, you know? Was that it? Was that part of it? Or was it?
Okay, first of all, I wish my editor, Dan Gerstle, were, who who ended up being, he's now the editor-in-chief of Norton Books, but I wish he were on with us, because he would be laughing at you, because he'd say, you should see what he sent me. I mean, it would have been 700 pages if I didn't have a great editor. And listen, I had that much material. There's a lot that didn't make it in this book that I think is super compelling, obviously, because I wrote it. But you're right. Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I'm trying to do a lot. I'm trying to go show, very briefly, take the history of offensive football, bring it from Walsh to Mike Shanahan, get it to Washington, and then branch it out and connect it. And they're all, to me, really compelling characters. But yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was at Sports Illustrated all those years, I'd read a story over 16, 17, 18 times sometimes before I sent it in to get it just perfect. But that wasn't just editing. That was, length to fit into the magazine. And
Yep.
if I wasn't going to cut it, they were. So that's what a lot of that was. Well, then they invented this thing called the internet, and people like me could start going, well, why do I have to fit it? I work for Yahoo or, The Athletic. So I'll just write a lot and everyone will read all of it. So I probably do write a little longer than I once did. And when you are self-important and think that every word is precious, I do think people will, I don't think it'll seem long to people. I think when you read it, you'll go, oh, okay, we're moving.
Let me tell you why I think it's necessary, real quick, because I don't want to jump off to Coach McDaniel. It's necessary because I played Jurassic Park and Jaws back to back years ago, and what I realized was that the dialogue in Jaws was much longer and more complicated. It was 1977, right?
Yeah.
And Jurassic Park, more special effects, less dialogue, and now today it's even less. So it's almost like it's a dumbing down of society that I believe books like The Why Is Everything force us to really read and learn. Okay, learn.
I hope so.
And that's what I love about it. And one thing I did learn is that Mike McDaniel is a really interesting, or as my friend Pia Pereira, who also went to Cal, who I wound up working for in Dallas, is a really weird twist, would call him a really nuclear dude.
I like that. To me, Mike McDaniel is just a fascinating character, not just for book purposes, but in real life, which is why I'll be watching this game on Thursday Night Football coming up and feeling kind of stressed about it, which we can get into. But he's different in a profession that is, where coaches are expected to be a certain way, and there's a stereotype, and a lot of people sell this gruff, hyper paranoid toughness and callousness. He's really different, and some of it is just obvious, which are the deadpan delivery, the quirkiness, just the talking to Justin Fields in the middle of a game, saying "stop it" when he comes by the sideline because he's killing you on the ground. But not just that, so many coaches, and this, Eddie, coaches and personnel people, you talk to them in a private moment and you'll ask them about players and they'll start to complain. This guy can't do this. I try to get him to do this. He's not good at this. Mike McDaniel is really a positive person in that context, oddly. Like, even a player that would frustrate a coach, Mike will say, yeah, but you should see the way he runs this out route. It is elite. I've never seen anything. He kind of dwells on the positive.
Yeah.
And he used to really connect as a receivers coach and a position coach and a run game coordinator with some of his players, because he would just say to them, hey, if you're going to you'll see the productivity, and then you're going to be a free agent and you're going to get money. And they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Kind of spoke their language. And so, there is a part of him that it's not just that he's an abstract thinker and has this beautiful mind and is schematically so advanced. It's not just that he's funny and quirky. And I've seen the dry delivery in person both kill and not kill, and it is a sight to behold more than anyone would imagine. But it's also that he has this inherent positivity, and unfortunately, I think that's part of what's going on with the Dolphins as he tries to reset and get it right here in year 4 after some really impressive success early. Is that they kind of let that culture, slip a little bit, where the Jalen Ramseys and the Tyreek Hills were, maybe not as team focused and we're getting away with some things. And, he's trying to tighten it up now. And it's always harder to go from loose to tight in these contexts than it is to go from tight to loose. And we're going to find out if it's too late.
Let me take that from an entirely other perspective, but one that once I ask, you'll see, that's Zinni. To me, what I loved about him was he had different takes on plays, but a criticism to me was that he didn't have a system. Like Tom Landry has multiple offense, flex defense. Bill Walsh has completely changed the way we think about running the passing game. I don't see that with him. I see them as what I would call a pointillist intellectual, and because of that, and then I started looking at it more, and I thought, wait a minute, and on this, and this, and then once I've got that done, or I play a zone or short, whatever, 5 short zone, 5 short man for man, 3 deep zone, 3. I don't want the 3, but I'll blitz occasionally, something like that. My point is, I can get him, and
there is a very distinct Shanahan system, and Kyle's is a little different from Mike's, but with the outside zone run as the bread and butter and all the offshoots. But it is an interesting discussion because Mike McDaniel, ultimately, his bread and butter was that run game in the Shanahan system. Right. He was the one that Kyle would trust to design sometimes very exotic runs, and I can point to some specific ones, or just, you remember in 2019 when they were rolling into the Super Bowl, both against the Vikings in the divisional round and the Packers in the NFC Championship, they looked like a 50s team just pounding the ball in different ways in those games. But, his level of run sophistication is incredibly high. To his credit, some would say, he went to Miami, and one of the distinguishing characteristics of this book is that you make your system pliable. You're not afraid to innovate on the fly, and you play to the strengths of your players. Well, he saw Tua, beating him down and sapped him of his confidence. And McDaniel ended up having this epiphany watching tape of Tua, where he thought he's so good at the, these getting the ball accurately in a specific way to players, and we can make that an elite thing. And so he got so excited that kind of triggered the trade for Tyreek Hill. They already had Waddle. They tried to build a team that was suited to those strengths, and you saw that, right? It was a track meet. Now, the criticism of that, and so again, he's evolving his system to meet the skills of his players, but the blowback is that when they got into tough contexts like cold weather playoff games, which, think about that game in Kansas City in year 2, they didn't have the ability to grind it out, and that largely got neutralized, and they were pretty lifeless against the Chiefs in that playoff game. So, again, he's a first-time head coach. He's a play caller. He's every week is its own entity. They start from scratch. It's opponent-specific game planning. It's a lot on one person's plate, and Kyle has managed to do that. But I think he's learning as he goes. And so the question is he out of time, or is he going to have a chance to fight his way out of this year?
What do you think?
Well,
now tonight is
terrible start, right? They got rolled by the Colts, who nobody thought was a Super Bowl contender. They lost to the Patriots and had time management stuff at the end and free snap penalties, and that was bad. They're playing a really good team, the Bills, on the road, and then they have a break till the next Monday night. So you're very suspicious, in my experience in these situations, when it's embarrassing or if it looks lifeless, watch out. So if you told me the Dolphins are going to look pretty good and lose to the Bills, and even if they lose by 10 points, they competed, they looked like they had a plan, and it looked okay, I'd be pretty surprised if Stephen Ross, the owner, made a move. But if you tell me they have no punch, they look lifeless, or they just get rolled, I'm really worried. If you go back and look at Stephen Ross's history, in 2015, Joe Philbin was kind of on the hot seat. He won his first game. They then lost 3 in a row. The third of those was in London, and it was not a pretty game. And then they had a bye coming out of that. That's when Stephen Ross did fire him after just 4 games. So it's definitely possible. I think process and how it looks is going to be as much as outcome. But if it looks bad and looks, like it's not, at some point you just throw up your hands as the owner and you want to tell the paying customers, this is crazy. I don't approve of this, and I'm doing something. In a perfect world, fight their way out of it. But I'm a little nervous going into this one.
Have you had an opportunity to take Mr. Ross's
team? Not directly, but I have talked to some people who talked to him, and I think, honestly, I don't think they know. I think there are people in that building who, it's a pretty good building. They pull together. Chris Greer, the general manager, is one of the most well-liked people in his role in the NFL, if not the most. Everybody likes everybody. Chris Greer is very embattled too, which is another topic of discussion. But everyone likes everybody. They want this to work. I think anyone in that building in a position of who has Mr. Ross's ear would probably say, I think we should stick with this if we can. But you just never know how an owner's going to react if it looks really, really
because
ugly.
The question would be for me, if you're going, don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you're going to switch, why are you switching, and switch to who?
Yeah, and so that's an interim you always worry. So again, I think you're only doing it if you are trying to show the paying customer this is bad. We're going to do it anyway at the end of the year. It does allow you to get a jump on talking to some people who are out and not employed by other teams. But you could make a case that they're texting with him earlier, but his defense is not playing the way that it did last year that he would like it to. But he is a very promising head coaching candidate in general, and a really good leader. If they did make a move with Mike and tabbed him as the interim, I think he'd do a really good job under some tough circumstances. More important, I think, if he does get a chance to be a head coach, and he went pretty far with the Saints down that road in the hiring process this last cycle. But I think if and when he does get a chance to be a non-interim head coach, he's really got a chance to be a star. But you could make a case to give that a test drive. But I agree with you. I think in a perfect world, you're giving McDaniel a chance to coach his way out of it, because they really did like the hire. They liked that it was against the grain. And in fairness to Mike McDaniel, it was a loose culture that was player friendly, but he was followed who had been Belichickian and alienated people in the building and players and his quarterback. And
he's got a, I met him. He's got a, I want to like the brother. Okay. So I want to, this is video. And he's very much like a military drill sergeant in how he approaches you, even when you just met him.
Well, he's a really good coach, and he did not deserve to be fired for his results. And
no, not at all.
And in Minnesota, as a defensive coordinator for Vikings, he is doing an incredible job and may get another chance. There's, he's also suing the league. We'll see how it goes. But I did do a big article last December, I think, on him and how he's changed and how that experience has shaped him, and he's really had to reflect, because I think, like a lot of those Belichick assistants, he went into his job thinking, look, it worked for Bill. I'm gonna have some similarities, and I think the mistake all of them make, honestly, is that Bill didn't win because he was a hard ass who was hyper paranoid and a jerk. He won because he's an incredible coach and had Tom Brady. And if you are as good a coach as Bill and have Tom Brady, I guess you can act however you want. But the other thing is just ancillary. So I think Brian eventually, if he gets another chance, will be more personable and more mindful of some of those things. But in that specific instance, in that building following Brian Flores, Mike was a huge breath of fresh air. And, he was right to do it the way he did it. I think he can still pull out of this. I just hope he's not out of time.
And something about Brian I want to share before I switch back to Mike is that there's a problem among guys who look like me who are coaches, less so now than during the Bozeman years at Cal. Giant chip on your shoulder because you're a pioneer. You're one of a few. And I think Brian, when I met him, had some of that in him. I bet he had the opportunity to say, young man, hey, you got this. Don't worry. You're going to do a great job. But he came off, and maybe it's just social, but there was that kind of nervousness. But also there's a cerebral aspect to him that caused him to come up with the pressure defense. It was a notable, that's a system. Okay, you want to talk about a system? There's your system. Okay, I'm like, yeah, man, that's bringing it. Speaking of bringing it, okay, I know we've got a little short leash. Cal's bringing it. We're 3-0, 5-0, 6-0.
By the way, Zenny, he flows from Brownsville. I mean, that explains some of it too. Sense. He's a Brooklyn dude. He's real. Anyway,
yeah. I just want to get a little comment about what you thought about if we could hit 6-0, and also give me a score for tonight's game.
Bills Dolphins. Oh man, I'm scared. Dolphins 30, Bills 28. Shock the world, baby. Who knows?
I'll take.
Maybe that's aspirational. As far as Cal, listen, you know as well as I do that traditionally Cal has not handled success always, and when people start to get excited about something, and sometimes there's a come down. And so I've definitely learned over the years that just try to focus on the now. So I'm only thinking about San Diego State Saturday, which will be a tough game, and Saturday night at the new stadium in Mission Valleys. But listen, having a quarterback makes it feel
all the difference. Yeah,
feel so different. And Jaren Kiave Sangapolatele is a true freshman, lefty from Hawaii. And obviously with any true freshman, it's not always going to look perfect, but woo, he's got something and everyone can feel it. The play calling seems really good. The offensive line is clearly better. All new skill players, some flashing more than others, but
thank you, Brian Harsin.
And the defense really showing out. So, if you looked before the season on paper, you would say schedule-wise, I couldn't imagine a more favorable college football schedule for a Power 4 team. Again, we're Cal, but on paper, there's no Clemson, no Florida State, no Miami.
Right.
It's at Va Tech, which just fired their coach. It's, SMU's at home at the end of the year. It's they're at Louisville. That's going to be tough, but it's really on paper a series of winnable games if they play well. Now it's Cal; they could go 3-9 on a missed kick on 9 times in a row. Don't get me wrong; I would never take anything for granted, but there's a lot of potential for it to be really, really cool. And the other thing is immediately, from the first series of this kid's career, when people around the country were like, "Oh my, look, who's this JKS guy?" Immediately it was, "Oh, well, he's just going to get bought and go to one of the power programs after this season, say goodbye." And I really don't fear that or think it's going to happen. I think he will be very happy in Berkeley. We're going to cherish every moment of the 3 years. He will be paid handsomely. And I think more significant, they're going to have a chance to build around him and go get some elite pass catchers and some other players to join up with the crew that they have now. So, I know it's Cal. We have PTSD for a lot of things and people hang their head, but I think people are missing the moment. This is and if you know the story of how we lost him and got him back, I think this kid is meant to be in Berkeley. I think he's feeling the vibe. And I think, he's going to be compensated handsomely for his efforts, as he should. But this is the start of something really cool. And 1 year would be great, but sad. 3 years would still feel too quick, but if that's what happens, I'm going to cherish every snap of those 3 years.
Has Justin saved his job, or is it too early?
It's too early, but I think the feeling going into this season, with Ron Rivera now coming in as GM and just the program trying to position itself in this new order, I think the feeling was pretty clear. Look, everyone likes Justin. Everyone wants him to succeed. He's done some really, really good things. Haven't been able to close a lot of these games out and haven't been able to get to the necessary level. The way this schedule is set up, he ought to be able to do it now and prove that he can. So that's kind of the vibe going in with by the way, with everybody rooting for that. He should be able to do it, and let's be really happy when it happens, and then we can all move forward. So far, so good. When you see how good the quarterback is, it ratchets up the pressure, but it also makes me believe that there's a very, very good chance that Cal's on their way to a special season. And in today's college football, as weird as it is, you also think, why not? Because you saw Indiana last year, you saw Arizona State and SMU, and you just said, wow, you can just get hot and defy expectations and be in the playoff. And, for some schools, being in the playoff is just a start. For those schools I mentioned, and certainly for Cal, you throw a parade down Telegraph and then we start going, because as our holy grail is the Rose Bowl. Right. It's now been ruined because of everything, including the unfortunate demise of the Pac-12, but you could still kind of
restructuring there coming.
What's that?
There's talk of a reformation.
Well,
there's talk.
Separate issue, but it's a longer conversation. But in the meantime, no. And the Pac-12 will reform, but not with Cal. But there is a chance if you get in the playoff now and win a game, because the Rose Bowl is going to be one of those second round games, right. And there are various permutations, but knowing what the Rose Bowl means to Cal fans and the Rose Bowl understanding how hard a ticket it would be if Cal ever went, because it's everybody's holy grail.
Exactly.
Some of us, are pretty old and it's never happened in our lifetime.
I'm only 36. What are you talking about?
if they're they won it in 38 and they lost in 59. So, but yeah, if Cal could ever be in the Rose Bowl, whether it was a playoff game or whatever, however it shakes out, that would be, another layer of incredible, euphoria. So going way ahead of ourselves, but hopefully they'll perform well against the Aztecs and keep it rolling.
Hey, also, switching back to the NFL, do you think we'll see the Dolphins in the playoffs?
Whoa. Well, I am only thinking right now about Thursday night football because, again, I think if it goes really bad tonight, there could be dramatic changes. But
here's where I'm going with this real quick.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe part of the defensive coordinator's problem is the offense is quite literally leaving them in bad positions.
That happened all last year, correct?
And so there you go. That's Mike.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, they've got the talent to do it. I believe in Mike McDaniel still. I definitely believe in Anthony Weaver in any capacity. And I think they've tried to, tighten things up to their credit internally. And I don't see a team that's quit. But then again, I haven't turned on the TV. So give me a few hours and I'll weigh in again.
I know you got to go. So I'll hit you backstage. Everybody, please show them book, Mike, please. Yeah. Buy the Why is Everything right now.
Available wherever books are sold.
Paperback soon?
Paperback very soon with a new chapter that gets us all through the 2023 season, the 2024 season. And paperback coming with a new chapter. And look, somebody on social media tried to make a comment to me in the wake of McDaniel's struggles that the narrative of the Why is Everything is changed. And I was like, not really. I mean, the other four right now are rolling. Raheem's got a big win.
Raheem.
LaFleur, believes they're Super Bowl contenders. Kyle is 2-0 with, just won a game with Mac Jones, which is heavily detailed in the book. And Sean McVay is 2-0. So, I mean, they've changed football. And by the way, the offshoots, the Kevin O'Connells of the world, et cetera. But it's a really cool book. It talks about, a different way of doing it and how the world of football has changed. And there's a lot of pettiness and rivalry along in those pages too.
Hey, you know what I'd like to do in closing is I'd like to have you back. And I'm going to change the title of this to focus more on a conversation with McDaniel. But this is the basically the layout of the stories to think about for this entire season. And so we can come back and check in and say, hey, let's talk about Raheem. Hey, right? Would you do that?
I mean,
schedule permitting, of course.
I'm sure there will be a time where you and I are speaking. I just did new job and fluid schedule, so I'm not as fast as Tyreek Hill, but I've been known to be elusive.
but just as important.
I don't know if definitely not as well compensated and trying to be a little more boring off the field, but so good talking to you. And maybe I'll see you at Big Game or one of these.
Trying to just, hey, prayers for my mom. Mom is great. Just thank the Lord in heaven. Yeah. Mike, stick around. I got this. Everybody, thank you very much for viewing and share this. That ends this stream, but I'll be back. All right. How was that, Mike?